powered by Riverside FM.
It is NFL 2025 Draft Eve, UP Nation, one of my favorite times of year. One more day until we find out what the Minnesota Vikings and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah are going to do with that 24th pick. And there are other 3 picks in the draft. If they stay at 3, if they trade and move back and accumulate more picks, preferably 6 total picks in the draft. But do you guys trust Kwesi? As great as Kwesi has been, free agency and undrafted free agents over his last few years with the Minnesota Vikings, this is kind of his weak area. This is the area where he's kind of been critiqued over the last couple of years. Do you trust Kwesi in his draft? Do you trust him? See, I think Kwesi is a Wall Street guy, not necessarily a football guy. So I think it's taken him a while to get acclimated to being a football decision maker. And I think he's going to redeem himself in this draft. Like, I look forward to great things with the Minnesota Vikings in this draft. I am keeping my fingers crossed. Kwesi, get the job done. But what do you think they're going to do, man? There's so many things that the Minnesota Vikings can do in the draft. They can trade back. They can stay pat. They can move up. You know, they can accumulate more draft picks. They can stay with 4 draft picks. Man, there's so many things that the Minnesota Vikings can do in this draft. Like, I'm just on pins and needles trying to figure this thing out, what they're going to do. You know, they could go a lot of different ways. Again, I made a podcast a few weeks ago talking about the Minnesota Vikings really can't mess up this draft. They put themselves in a good spot. But I wanted to talk about just 5 realistic targets for the Minnesota Vikings at pick 24. You know, there are 5 people that you can put on any list that you really want, but realistically, are they going to be there at 24? So I'm just kind of looking at guys that may be there at 24. Like, how about my guy Derrick Harmon from Oregon? You know, he will solve a lot of interior defensive lineman quandaries that the Minnesota Vikings have. You know, he will bolster that interior defensive line. The kid is strong. He could be disruptive, came from a great system in Oregon in terms of defense. I think he would definitely help that defensive line. I think he's going to be I think he's going to be around 24. Could go earlier. But there's been a lot of speculation that a few people are going to drop. There's going to be a lot of movements here and there, so you never know. But I think Derrick Harmon may be somebody that's going to be there for the Minnesota Vikings. I'm talking about realistically going to be there at pick 24. Lots of guys that we probably want. Zabel is another one, the monster from North Dakota State. I mean, this dude is a monster. 6'6", size, agility, would complete the puzzle to revamping that offensive line. I think we would have top 2, top 3 offensive line in the league, especially if Christian Derrick comes back. You know, we don't know how that knee is going to turn out for Derrick, but he fits, man. He fits. He adds a lot of offensive line depth, and he could come in and make an immediate impact at left guard for the Minnesota Vikings. I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind Zabel. Another offensive lineman is Tyler Booker. It's powerful. Difference between Tyler Booker and Zabel is that he played at Alabama, man. He played at Alabama, so he's going up against SEC competition. As great as Zabel is, you can't say that he's played the type of competition that Tyler Booker has. I mean, it's not even close at North Dakota State. But Zabel is a monster. Booker is someone that if you feel like you need somebody that can step in right away, that have seen the competition that Booker has seen, gone up against professional talent week in and week out playing in an SEC, Tyler Booker might be your guy. Another question mark, man. I was watching the Purple Daily guys, and Thor talked about Nick Emmanwori from South Carolina. Hybrid safety, not really great in coverage, but he's got playmaking ability, man. He's a really good athlete. You know, he would complement the Vikings defense. Don't know if that's the pick at 24. If he slides back really into some of the later rounds, probably would snag him up. I don't know if I would use that pick on 24. Just not sure. You know, Mason Graham, defensive tackle from Michigan, another guy that you may be looking at. His defensive line skills are really second to none in terms of people that can be drafted at 24. I just like this guy. And so, all the names mentioned, these are not guys that, you look at the Minnesota Vikings would have to pick. I'm just looking at these guys that they're possibly going to be around that 24 mark, where if the Minnesota Vikings were going to stay pat at 24, these are some guys that you can look at. Just wanted to give you 5 names on draft eve. UP Nation, what do you think the Minnesota Vikings are going to do with that pick? What would you do? Put yourselves in the seat of Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. Do you try to, being that you've put yourself in a situation where you are BPA, best player available, do you move back, accumulate more picks, more bites at the apple, more depth to your team? The question to that is, I think that's kind of a no-brainer, but the question is, who falls to you? 24, is it a guy or player that you just can't pass up? Man, it's going to be intriguing to see. I don't see the Minnesota Vikings moving up. There's been speculation that the Minnesota Vikings might move up. I think they're done with that. They did that with Dallas Turner last year. They did that with J.J. McCarthy last year. You can't keep depleting those assets. So I do think the Minnesota Vikings, there's a possibility they stay at 24, but I just think that they're going to move back. If the Minnesota Vikings move back, put together a deal that you would like to see, UP Nation. Put it in the comments. Man, I like to see people brainstorm. A lot of people are sitting at home on their couches, but they have really, really good takes. They have really, really good takes. Like my boy Two-Tone Skull, my guy Krim out there. Like, I love to hear what you guys are thinking in terms of Minnesota Viking takes. You guys give really, really good takes. You know what we're going to start doing on UP Nation? I'm going to put a wall of fame up for guys that just have great takes and that are constant commenters on our videos. I know a lot of you probably don't troll all the comments, man, but a lot of these guys have really, really good takes. And I love going back and forth with them on some of their philosophies on what the Minnesota Vikings would do. It's going to be interesting to see if some of these things come to fruition that I have heard that people have sent me tomorrow night. We're going to be putting out some content tomorrow night throughout the draft to let you know what's happening on Unconventional Playbook and to get our thoughts. So I hope you guys have a great draft eve. We will see you tomorrow night at the NFL draft. Minnesota Vikings. Kwesi, get it done. Kwesi, you better get this thing done. All right, this has been Unconventional Playbook. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Please consider becoming a member. And as always, UP Nation, we will see you when we see you. Skol!